This could change everything for the Toronto Blue Jays as a recent report has come out linking the Jays to a superstar pitcher in this upcoming free agency period. We're going to break down the report and discuss what it can mean going forward as the Jays look to land a big fish in free agency. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, make sure to hit that like button. Let's try to hit 200 likes on this video. Your guys' support has been unbelievable, and thank you for that. But let's dive right into it. And obviously, the Jays aren't competing for a playoff spot at this point. They fell and lost 2 games in a row yesterday and the day before to the Philadelphia Phillies. But at this point, we're looking forward to seeing all the young guys play, and we're also looking forward to the upcoming offseason and the Jays looking to land a big star. Now, whether that's going to be a guy like Juan Soto, maybe even a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, who's on a bit of a tier below Juan Soto, obviously. But a recent report and article has come out linking the Jays to Corbin Burnes. Now, we know that the Orioles traded for Corbin Burnes very recently, obviously last offseason, in exchange for a couple of key prospects in the Orioles system. But the caveat to that is that Corbin Burnes is now a pending free agent heading into this upcoming offseason, and the Jays could potentially land the star, according to this article. So we dive right into it. You can see here, but when the offseason gets underway, they may end up, the Jays that is, going big to try to bounce back into contention for next season. Jack Reiner of Bleacher Report lists them as a possible fit for former Cy Young Corbin Burnes. Subsequent collapse of their starting pitching makes it fair to wonder if they'll make a more aggressive play for an ace this time around, though whether this is the right moment for a splash is a fair question. And that is obviously the biggest thing heading into the offseason is whether or not the Jays are going to go for Juan Soto. We know that Chris Bassett called them out for going for Shohei Ohtani and striking out and having no contingency plan last offseason. If they do go for one of the big fish like Juan Soto and they don't land him, maybe they pivot for a starting pitcher, because this year the pitching staff has they're like 27th in ERA. So it's very interesting, but we can dive into the exact report here. So landing spots for Orioles ace Corbin Burnes ahead of 2024 MLB free agency, and they rank the Jays as number 7. So they're in the top 10. Obviously, at this point, it's kind of ranking the landing spots, but we do know that the Jays have been linked to Corbin Burnes in the past. You can see right now the record is obviously 67 and 73, but they're 27th in the all of MLB in starting pitching WAR at 2.9. And coming into the season, their starting pitching was supposed to be one of their biggest strengths for the Toronto Blue Jays. It was supposed to be that, and the bullpen and the defense and the offense will come along. Naturally, the offense never came along. The starting pitching never got locked in. They have a lot of aging pitchers. You're thinking of guys like Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett, who are both coming onto the tail end of their contracts respectively. But if they can go out and land a guy like Corbin Burnes, then they're going to be in very good shape, at least starting pitching wise, because it's fair to think and assume that the Jays are going to bounce back next season, both offensively and especially in the starting pitching category, with or without Corbin Burnes. Now, the bullpen is a whole nother question, but you can see this here. Speaking of Snell, the Jays were briefly in on him last winter. We remember that. The Jays were attempting to land Blake Snell. They ultimately fell through and failed to do that, but the subsequent collapse of their starting pitching makes it fair to wonder if they'll make a more aggressive play. Now, again, you look at the second part here where it says whether or not this is the right moment is a fair kind of discussion and fair question here. You look at Corbin Burnes' stats this season, 28 games is a 3.19 ERA and 169 innings pitched. He's only 29 years old. He is going to be 30 by the time he hits free agency, but we all know how good Corbin Burnes is. He was phenomenal with the Brewers. He obviously has been very good with the Orioles. The Jays have seen the Orioles a few times. They've seen Corbin Burnes a few times, and he's one of the best starting pitchers in the AL and in the MLB. But if the Jays want to go out and get him, he is going to get paid a lot of money, and they're going to have to make some big financial acquisitions this offseason, because if you look at Juan Soto, he's obviously going to get paid probably over $500 million. Corbin Burnes, we don't really know the projections yet for his contract, but it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars for Corbin Burnes, maybe 200, maybe 300. It hasn't really came out yet, but we've seen some of the pitchers in the past and what kind of money they've been getting, and it's quite frankly a lot. So if the Jays do end up and decide to spend on a guy like Corbin Burnes, or a starting pitcher at all for that matter, it's going to be important that they fix the offense first, or at least add some guys, because they need to get a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, and I'm going to assume Juan Soto doesn't come to the Toronto Blue Jays. So a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, a guy like Pete Alonso, anyone who can go into the 2 to 4 spot in the Jays lineup, they need at least one more guy who can thump there. You have your leadoff, you have probably Bichette at 2. And then you have Vladdy. So in the top 4, you have Bichette and Vladdy. If you can add one more, really you should probably add 2 more big time hitters. And they have the ability to do that. Obviously, Rogers has the money. They have all of this. They almost spent $600 million to $700 million on Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, he provides a different level of marketing to the team than other players would. But if they're able to land a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, and obviously the big fish here is Juan Soto, but that's probably more unlikely than other guys. Teoscar, Pete Alonso. They could make a trade for a big time hitter. They need to address the offense. And then if they do that and they still have money left over, even though there's no salary cap in the MLB, so they have like infinite money. There's obviously the luxury tax, but they could go out and grab a very interesting starting pitcher in a guy like Corbin Burnes, who at this point is a very interesting acquisition here with Corbin Burnes. And again, if they get the offense sorted, then they can sign a guy like this. Then they're looking very, very good, because then you have your starting pitchers. You have José Berríos, you have Kevin Gausman, you obviously have Chris Bassett, and a guy we're about to get into now, Bowden Francis, has been unbelievable. A starting five, you add a guy like Corbin Burnes, or even just another higher level starting pitcher to this team if they can fix the offense. And that's the biggest caveat here. They need to make sure their offense is good. We know Vladdy's going to put up MVP caliber numbers. We don't know what Bo Bichette is going to have next season. We don't even know if he's going to be a Blue Jay next season, because the Jays could end up ultimately trading him. If that's the case, who knows what they get back. I'm assuming if they trade Bo, they're going to get MLB ready players back that can go into the lineup and be productive. But it's going to be very interesting to see. And one other thing I wanted to bring up that kind of surrounds this topic is Bowden Francis. And you see this here from Sportsnet 590, The Fan. This is from Keegan Matheson. We all know him. It says, "This for my dollar, the story of the season is the story of the season right now for the Toronto Blue Jays," which is Bowden Francis, who, congratulations to him, won the AL Pitcher of the Month for August, putting up a 1.05 ERA in 34 innings pitched. He's been the kind of the Cinderella story for the Jays, and he started off, we know that last year in the long bullpen role, he had a very, very solid year, and coming into this season, he struggled through his first handful of starts, but as of late, even just the game yesterday, or a couple days ago, he's really turned into a very good pitcher. He went up against the Phillies, 6 innings, 3 runs. He bounced back after giving up a really interesting home run to Kyle Schwarber in the second pitch of the game. And he bounced back and was able to hold one of the best teams in baseball in the Philadelphia Phillies to 3 runs over 6 innings. And if he can give you that throughout a whole 162 game season, where you're pitching every 5th day as the 5th starter, even a 3 to a 4 ERA, even a low 4s ERA would be perfect for Bowden Francis, which will allow them to factor other guys into the mix heading into next season, whether that's Alek Manoah, whether that's Ricky Tiedemann, whether that's, in this case, discussing Corbin Burnes, who's obviously on a whole nother level compared to those two players. It makes the team a lot deeper. And again, since Bowden Francis has been primarily used as a starting pitcher, which has been since the All-Star break, 33 innings, a 1.91 ERA, like, he's ultimately just been a very good pitcher, and one that, coming into the season, we didn't really think Bowden Francis was going to factor into the rotation at all, because you had guys like Ricky Tiedemann ready to come up. You had guys like Alek Manoah, who was looking very good before he went down with his injury. But now, because of the injuries, Bowden Francis has turned himself into one of the better starting pitchers, at least over the past month in baseball, but going forward, one of the better starting pitchers on the Jays starting rotation, which is going to be important, especially if they want to compete next season. And ultimately, it might make it a decision to sign a guy like Corbin Burnes, or go out and get another starting pitcher, or in this case, a guy like Corbin Burnes, but a big hitter if they need to, which they definitely do. Makes that decision a little bit easier when you have a 5th starter locked in already on your rotation. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.